Hello and welcome to part 1 in a series of tutorials where I'm going to show you how to crochet these heartstrings, which are basically just small heart-shaped motifs that are strung together, all worked continuously with one length of yarn. This uses my breakaway crochet techniques, so if you're unfamiliar with that, I've got a link in the description for some background videos that you might want to watch first. I'm also publishing the written instructions on Ravelry. That will be a free download, and I'll also put a link for that in the description. And mind you, I'm doing small hearts in this video. I will also be doing some slightly larger hearts in part 2 and some different variations, adding in sort of some filler motifs in part 3. Okay, so for now, let's start with this vertical string of small hearts. Okay, so even though the orientation looks like that, it's probably going to lie more like this as we work. And the general sequence is starting here and working half of the heart and moving to the next one, working half here, and so on until we get to the end, where, as usual, we work around and then do the return row, working all the tops until we get back to the beginning. So that's pretty standard breakaway technique there. Okay, so let's get started. To begin a vertical string of small hearts, start with a floating slip stitch. To do that, that's again yarn over, pinch, yarn over, pinch, and yarn over, and we're going to go through all 3 loops on the hook, including that slip stitch, or the slip knot at the beginning. So that's our floating slip stitch, and those 2 loops there are going to be the center ring where all the stitches are going to be worked. Alright, to continue on, we do a chain 1, then a double crochet into the floating ring. This is US terminology, by the way. And now we work 4 treble crochets into the ring. Mind you, since we're putting a lot of stitches into the center ring, it's a good idea to scrunch things up as we go so that everything fits in evenly. Okay, now that those 4 treble crochets are done, do 3 double crochets again, slide those along. And now to make the pointy part of the heart, do chain 1, and we're going to do treble 2 together. So that was yarn over twice, leave that treble unfinished, yarn over twice again, work another unfinished treble, yarn over and go through all 3. So again, that's the first half of the heart done. So now it's time to go to the next one, where we just repeat exactly what we've just done here. It just looks a little bit different because now we've got one motif already attached. So again, it's a floating slip stitch, yarn around, pinch, yarn around, pinch, yarn around, and go through all 3. Chain 1, double crochet into the floating ring, and so on. Okay, so again, just follow what I've done here, and if you want to refer to the written instructions, that will help you keep track of what stitches we are doing. So I'll work a few more of these until I get to the end of the string, which of course can be as long as I want. and then I'll go through the return row. So here I am at the end of the last motif of my string, and I've only done 4 for this sample. Just untwist it and show you what it looks like so far. So there we have just one side of the heart done. So now it's time to go back and finish off the other side. So to do that, it's pretty straightforward. Just chain 1, 3 double crochets. So again, it's matching the first half really. So the 3 double crochets in the ring, 4 trebles, double crochet, chain 1, and then just pull it apart. We're going to slip stitch into the center ring and just pull that kind of tight to make that sort of crevice nice and pronounced. And that's finished that one, except for one last thing. As usual, we crochet around the strands that are between the current motif and the next one. So it's a little bit tricky, you've got to kind of go behind there. So just take the hook under and grab the yarn and finish off that slip stitch. And again, kind of pull that a little bit tight to make sure everything looks good. And now let's finish off this motif. Again, it's chain 1, 3 double crochets, 4 trebles, double crochet, 1 chain, and slip stitch into the center ring. And don't forget, we've got to crochet around those strands between motifs. Just make sure the next one's not twisted. Okay, so that's the idea. And I'll just continue on. That's what we look like so far. I'll just continue on and end here on the last motif. So that was the double crochet, chain 1, and doing the final slip stitch there, and then just do the slip stitch in the next stitch to finish things off. And there we have it. And you usually have to kind of stretch these out a little bit once they're done. They're a bit mangled until you can go through and straighten them out. And there is a small vertical string of hearts. Now let's move on to horizontal hearts. And again, we use the typical breakaway techniques. We will be working the bottom pointy bits on each motif, and then when we get to the end, again, we work those 2 bumps on each motif and finish off. So again, very typical of my technique. And since we are entering from the side and not from the crevice, the beginning stitch will this time be a floating treble. To do that, we do yarn around twice and then make a floating ring. So yarn over, pinch, yarn over, pinch, yarn over, pull through 2. There's the floating ring, and all these 3 stitches left here are available for us to finish off our treble crochet. So pull through 2, pull through 2, pull through 2, and that's the first treble and the floating ring of the first motif done. Okay, so now let's move towards the pointy bit. We do that by working 3 double crochets, just like we did before in the ring. Now we are actually at the pointy part, so do a chain 1, treble 2 together, chain 1, and then make our way up the other side after the pointy bit. So 3 double crochets, 1, 2, 3, and before we move on to the next motif, do another treble. So there we have it. There's the first part of that first motif done. Time to move to the next one. And again, you're just repeating what we've just done. We start with a floating treble, yarn around twice, yarn around, pinch, yarn around, pinch, yarn around, go through the 2 pinched loops, finish off the treble by going through 2, go through 2, go through 2, and so on. Again, if you need to have a written account of the stitches to help you remember, please download the free pattern on Ravelry. So again, I'll work a few more until it's time to do the return row. Just working the last treble of the first half, and I've just made again just 4 hearts for this sample. So now it's time again to go back. So this should be very familiar. We're going to work 3 more trebles into the floating ring, and then a double crochet, chain 1, slip stitch into the ring, and now going on to the other bump, chain 1, double crochet, and 3 more trebles into the ring. And to finish off that one again at the end, again we crochet around the strands between the 2 motifs, which closes everything off, kind of connects one motif to the next, and that's that one finished. So just repeat all the way across. And again, when you get to the end, just doing that final treble, just slip stitch into the first stitch from the very beginning. Just look for the yarn tail, and that's our little string of horizontal hearts. And these look much better once you block them, which I strongly recommend you do. And so many uses for these. Again, I'll show you lots of things on my Instagram account over the following few days, so I hope you follow me there. Thanks for subscribing, and